I have a friend who's in the roofing business here in town, so he pays close attention to the weather. And last year he was tracking storms right up to December 31st, knowing full well that we were nearing a record wet year. And officially 2011 ended up the second wettest year on record in State College, but statewide on average it was the wettest. Now the data is still considered preliminary, but that said, the states shaded in dark green here had their wettest year on record last year. Not just Pennsylvania, but 6 other nearby states from Indiana all the way to Connecticut. In addition, for 8 surrounding states that we've shaded here in light green, from Illinois to Maryland to Vermont, last year was in the top 10% of wettest years on record. Now, to compute a statewide average precipitation, the Commonwealth is divided into 10 climate divisions, in large part on the basis of similar weather and geography. Then, using data from the primary observing sites, where you see the dots here, and a couple hundred cooperative observing sites, an average precipitation value is computed for each division. And here's those numbers for last year. And no surprise that the biggest values were in the eastern part of the state, centered on the mid-Susquehanna Valley. Then, to get the statewide value, these numbers are averaged, but it's not a simple average. Instead, the divisions that are larger in area get more weight. So those in the western part of the state, for example, impact the average a little more. As always, we do the math for you here on Weather World. The statewide average for 2011 was 59.16 inches, still considered preliminary, but it beats the previous record by more than 3 inches. So even if a minor adjustment is necessary, 2011 will still end up a record wet year. And just for comparison, the long-term statewide average is about 40 inches. Here's a look at the statewide average yearly precipitation for each year going back to 1950. We actually have data all the way back to 1896, but I cut it off to make the chart a little simpler. Now, the first thing I notice is the huge year-to-year variability, some years as little as about 30 inches of liquid. Now, prior to last year, the wettest year in Pennsylvania on average was 1996, about 56 inches. The third and fourth wettest were 2003 and 2004. So the 4 wettest years on record in Pennsylvania have all occurred in the last 16 years. 2011 may have also broken the record for most precipitation in one year anywhere in the state. Mount Pocono currently holds the record with 81.54 inches in 1952. But look at these numbers measured last year. Now, the Colesdale and Chapman values aren't eligible to be state records because those sites have only been around for a year or two. But Stroudsburg's observations go back 100 years. And although this number is a little shy of the Mount Pocono record, it turns out that one day during Tropical Storm Lee wasn't included in this preliminary total. So the official number will likely be enough to set a new state record. Our own Paul Knight is part of a Climate Extremes Committee that will meet next month to approve the Stroudsburg value, as well as consider possible new state records in New Jersey, New York, and Vermont. And Paul will be here next with the extended forecast.